Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clay and I am the Bucks believer. Well, folks, it appears that I will not be getting any sleep tonight. That overtime victory for the Bucks was far too epic for me to possibly get any Z's. First of all, I just want to say we did it. It took a whole lot of luck, but the Bucks have officially upset the Brooklyn Nets. Tonight they came away with a 115 to 111 victory in an overtime battle against the Nets. And oh boy, does it feel great to be heading back to the Eastern Conference Finals, where the Bucks will look to make their first finals appearance since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was suiting up for Milwaukee. James Harden missed 4 games in this series, Kyrie Irving missed 3.5, and Joe Harris had a shockingly awful series. But even with that said, the Bucks absolutely deserve to be moving on, and they showed a whole lot of heart in winning this series. They fell behind 2-0, losing both of the opening games in Brooklyn, and they got crushed in Game 2. So pretty much everyone was starting to count Milwaukee out, but the Bucks never gave up. They fought through an incredibly difficult shooting night in Game 3 and narrowly won a defensive battle. They evened the series up in Game 4 after Irving went down with an ankle injury. After a crazy Game 5 from Kevin Durant, the Bucks fought back again and evened the series at 3 games apiece. That takes us to tonight. And on this night, the stars were certainly out. Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo had a battle for the ages. Let's start by talking about Durant, whose night was nothing short of record-setting. Durant set a new record for the most points scored in a Game 7 of a playoff series, as he scored 48 points for the Nets. This was another outstanding performance from KD in a series where he's had to carry his team all the way along. He took them as far as they possibly could go, and that nearly was all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. In this game, he had 48 points while shooting 17 for 36 from the field, 4 for 11 from the three-point line, and 10 for 11 from the free throw line. Durant did a terrific job of finding whatever chink in the Bucks defense he possibly could. That was usually a screen and roll with whoever was defended by Brook Lopez. In the first half, that usually was Bruce Brown. Brown would come up and set a screen, and Lopez would come up and contest Durant's jump shot. Lopez actually did a pretty solid job on contesting those jumpers from Durant a lot of the time, but even so, KD was still able to knock them down with much frequency. In addition to the jump shooting over Lopez, if Brook ended up overcommitting, Durant was very capable of finding Brown on the short roll, where Bruce was very able to catch the ball in the mid-range, where he was able to pop up a little floater shot. That happened on multiple occasions throughout that first half, and we saw Brown head into halftime with upwards of 10 points, which is already exceeding his points per game average for this season, and a large reason for that was the playmaking of Durant. KD finished with 6 assists in this game, but he played a much larger role as a playmaker than those numbers would indicate, as he was consistently the primary ball handler and was finding Nets players both open inside and on the perimeter. In addition to finding Brown, in the second half, the Bucks made an adjustment. They put Lopez on Blake Griffin instead of Bruce Brown. And as you should know, Durant continued to attack Lopez. Instead of Brown setting those high screens on Durant's defender, instead it was Griffin coming up and setting the screen on what was usually PJ Tucker. Tucker, as he has throughout this series, continued to do an excellent job of fighting through those screens and contesting Durant's shots. But even so, KD was just such a ridiculous shot maker, and he continued to rattle them in time and time again. And it all accumulated into a 109 to 107 lead for the Bucks with just seconds remaining in regulation. I believe there were 6 seconds left on the clock as Durant caught the ball at the top of the key and went to work against Tucker. He ended up putting himself in a position to take a step back jumper. Tucker did a perfect job of contesting it. Durant had a hand in his face, and he made one of the craziest shots I have ever seen to narrowly beat the buzzer and send this game into overtime. At that point, Durant had played all 48 minutes and was hounded by Tucker for almost all of those. That eventually ended up tiring KD out. Even though Tucker fouled out early on in overtime, Durant still really struggled to get anything going as he went 0 for 6 in the extra period, Chris Middleton deserves a lot of credit for his stellar defense on KD in overtime, but I also give Tucker a lot of credit for tiring KD out throughout the game by forcing Durant to take numerous difficult shots that would have been easy had he been defended by pretty much anyone in the entire NBA aside from PJ Tucker, who really has become a huge source of energy for this Bucks team in the playoffs so far. Throughout this series, Durant and Tucker were battling, and we saw those two end up with a little bit of a hug following the conclusion of the game, and that was really nice to see because it was a huge sign of respect between two players that left everything out on the court in every game of this series. Durant's star on the other side of the court, Giannis Antetokounmpo, also had a fantastic performance. Giannis had 40 points and 13 rebounds while shooting 13 for 18 from two-point range in this contest. Giannis did a great job of finding whatever weakness in the Nets' offense was apparent, similar to what Durant did against the Bucks defense, but Giannis did it in a very different way from KD. With Giannis, instead of it being isolations from the top of the key, instead Antetokounmpo was attacking from the side time and time again, and that worked to great effect for the Bucks. Giannis was primarily guarded by Blake Griffin in this game, and Antetokounmpo did a great job of using his length to get around Griffin and get to the basket for some easy finishes at the rim. He also put Blake in some foul trouble, and eventually, in the overtime period, Blake ended up fouling out. Giannis is usually not the most reliable free throw shooter, but in this game he ended up doing all right despite shooting 2 air balls as he shot 8 for 14 from the line. That is far from perfect, but for Giannis, it's probably his best free throw shooting performance of the series, so as a Bucks fan, I will certainly take it, because outside of the struggles from the free throw line, Giannis was terrific in this series as he consistently was doing a great job of attacking the basket. Whenever he did make that decision, he was doing a great job finishing. Whenever Giannis did settle, it was a little more frustrating, and he took far more three-pointers than many Bucks fans would be comfortable with, myself included. And in this game, that continued to be true as he went 2 for 6 from beyond the arc. And as I like to say, that's 6 more than he should be taking. Giannis was able to knock down 2 of those, one of which came early in the first quarter, the second of which came in the second half, and he banked that one in. But overall, just a great game from Giannis, and he deserves a ton of credit for being the only reliable source of offense for the Bucks in the first 3 quarters. The reason for him being that only reliable source of offense was the struggles of his partners in crime, Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton. Each of those 2 players really struggled throughout the first 3 quarters, but in the fourth quarter and overtime, they both stepped up and made huge plays. Holiday in particular really could not get his shots to fall in this game, which held true a trend that has been continuing throughout this series. Holiday really struggled on the offensive end of the court against the Nets, and this was no exception as he scored just 13 points on 5 for 23 shooting from the field. Ouch. He consistently settled for jump shots, and that was not working out for Jrue as he just could not get any of those to fall up until the fourth quarter where he made 2 3-pointers. Until that point, I think he was 0 for 6 from beyond the three-point line, so it was not exactly a promising sight to see him jacking him up in the fourth quarter, but he was able to knock him down, one of which was a catch-and-shoot 3 from a Giannis driving kick, and the other of which was a step-back three-pointer that was a dagger for the Bucks and allowed them to take the lead. I guess it wasn't a dagger because they couldn't seal the victory in regulation, but overall, a great fourth quarter from Holiday that completely made up for his struggles in the first 3 quarters. He also, in tandem with Chris Middleton, was excellent defending James Harden in tonight's game. Harden was able to get up to 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists, and Harden's a stellar player. He's going to be able to have a huge night regardless of how great of defense you play. Even when you do consider that he was hindered by a apparently grade 2 hamstring strain. Or was it quadricep? I forgot all of a sudden. Anyways, Harden struggled with his efficiency, and that's because of the great defense played by Holiday and Middleton. They did not allow him to get to his step back as often as he would have wanted, which was a problem that occurred whenever Giannis Antetokounmpo was switched on to Harden. And those two guys did a great job of contesting Harden's step back when he did try to put that up. Because of that, James shot just 5 for 17 from the field and 2 for 12 from the three-point line in this game. And overall, I give Milwaukee a ton of credit for playing the caliber of defense that they did on James. The most reliable source of offense for Harden in this game was the free throw line, as he shot 10 for 10 from the line, but most, if not all of those, came in the first half. In the second half, it felt like the Bucks were doing a much better job of playing smart defense and avoiding the contact that Harden was trying to create throughout this game, and that led to Harden having a less productive second half than he did first. As I said, Middleton also spent time on Harden, and another commonality that he has with Holiday in this game was that he struggled to score efficiently from the field. Middleton finished with 23 points, but it took him 26 shots to do so, and he made just 9 of those 26. Chris was getting solid shots, and I thought that the process with which he was getting those looks was solid, but he couldn't seem to get any of them to fall. There were multiple looks that were rolling around the rim or went in and out, and it was unfortunate for the Bucks because had Chris been able to get going, they likely could have had a much more comfortable lead over Brooklyn and probably wouldn't have had to go into an overtime. Fortunately for the Bucks, when it came to crunch time, Chris really stepped it up. The biggest play he made, in my opinion, was a huge steal from Kevin Durant with about a minute left in the fourth quarter. That was a consistent source of positive output from Middleton in this series, as he had 5 steals in his massive Game 6 performance and 5 more steals in tonight's game, as he was always active on the defensive end of the court. Chris also made a massive pull-up mid-range shot with 40 seconds left in overtime that ended up being the game-winning shot for the Bucks. Chris was also defending Durant for the entire the entire overtime after PJ Tucker fouled out. So overall, he deserves a lot of credit. When you also consider that Holiday and Middleton combined for 17 rebounds and 14 assists, it becomes very apparent that while those two were far from perfect, they were imperative to the Bucks' success, and their key play down the stretch absolutely proves that statement to be true. In addition to the Bucks' stars playing quite well, their role players also stepped it up big time in this game. By the role players, I am referring to a set of 3 guys: Brook Lopez, Pat Connaughton, and PJ Tucker. Let's start by talking about Lopez. Most people will point to him forgetting there were 2 seconds left on the shot clock with 8 seconds left in the fourth quarter as the Bucks inbounded the ball to Brook, and he proceeded to stand there with the basketball as the shot clock expired, and he, tried to throw a pass over to Chris Middleton, but it was too little too late, and the Bucks ended up turning the ball over to the Nets and giving Brooklyn a chance to tie up the game and send it into overtime. However, while that play was a huge one and really impacted this game, I think the biggest play that Brook made was blocking KD's layup with less than a minute left in OT, and that's certainly the one that I'm going to choose to remember from Brook in this game. Lopez was a consistent force at the rim for the Bucks as he finished with 4 blocks in all and was a great deterrent for Milwaukee at the basket. He was frequently taken advantage of in pick and roll as Durant took him and put him in a position where he had to choose to either step up and contest Durant's jumper, leaving his man alone for an easy layup, or fall back and make KD take an open jump shot, which is not exactly a positive outcome either. So while Lopez did struggle in that area, his rim protection was very important to what the Bucks did on defense in this game. And on offense, he was a really solid source of offense throughout. He was quite consistent, putting up 19 points on 7 for 11 shooting while making 3 of his 4 3-pointers. That 3-point output was incredibly important for the Bucks in this game, as he was a reliable knockdown shooter. Giannis Antetokounmpo had a lot of drive and kick threes in this game, and while Holiday and Middleton both struggled to knock those down, Lopez was hitting them, and that was very key for the Bucks. Brook also was successful inside the arc as he grabbed 5 offensive rebounds in this game, which allowed him to get some easy putbacks, and he also was a threat in the post as the Bucks looked to get it inside to him a bit more than they have in recent games against Brooklyn, so that was also good to see. Overall, just a really solid game from Brook Lopez, and I hope that people see that despite him making the huge mistake at the end of the fourth quarter. PJ Tucker also had a massive game for the Bucks. As I said before, he defended Kevin Durant throughout and did a terrific job in doing that role despite Durant having such a huge game. PJ made it incredibly difficult on him to get his points. Durant's just a great player, and he's going to score no matter what. PJ also made an impact as an off-the-ball defender as he was very active in deflecting Durant's passes and denying the ball from KD as he had 3 steals in this game. And he also had some weak side rim protection ability in this game as PJ picked up 2 blocks as well. On the offensive end, he was not a complete negative, which is what he usually is, as we saw PJ shoot quite well, making 3 of his 5 3-pointers in this game. He also grabbed 4 offensive rebounds, giving the Bucks another source of hustle plays, which was huge in this game, as Milwaukee didn't necessarily shoot the ball great, so they did need that offensive rebounding to come through and generate themselves some extra possessions, allowing the Bucks to win this game. If it wouldn't have been for the offensive rebounds, 9 from the combination of Lopez and Tucker, they might not come away with a win in this game. PJ had a key putback for the Bucks off one of those offensive rebounds to finish with 11 points. So just a really nice game from Tucker, both on offense, which was unexpected, and on defense, which obviously was pretty well expected considering how great he had been on that end of the court throughout this series. Finally, Pat Connaughton, one of my favorite players on the Bucks, had himself quite the night. He only had 9 points, but he shot really well from the 3-point line, shooting 3 for 5 from beyond the arc, and really did whatever the Bucks needed him to. Each of those 3 shots were key ones that were wide open, and had he missed them, would have put the Bucks in some trouble. So for him to knock them down was quite key. He also was not taken advantage of on defense as much as he has been in prior matchups against Brooklyn, and he did a really nice job of rebounding as he came away with 4 boards. So a nice game from Connaughton in addition to what Lopez and Tucker did, and Pat also had the best plus-minus on the Bucks in this game as he was a plus 10. So just a shout out to the role players for getting the job done. This series was a huge success for the Bucks. They had the opportunity to pull off an upset, and they seized it. We don't yet know their matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals, but if Milwaukee approaches it with the same never-back-down mindset, I really like their chances about just about anyone in the entire league. Let me know what your thoughts were on this game and this video in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe, especially if you are a fellow Bucks believer. This is the place for you. I think that I've covered everything that I wanted to cover, so that's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.